Welcome back to Truck Tech, everyone. Good to see you. New week we have for another show. How about that? Our 18th episode this week, which really doesn't mean much of anything, but I thought I'd mention that. We spend a lot of time at FreightWaves writing about and talking about and analyzing the whole electric truck space. It's interesting because when you do that, you sometimes forget what those trucks actually haul, and that's trailers. So our guest today, Ali Javadi, is going to help us understand a little bit of what he's working on in terms of electrifying trailers. But we're going to talk to him after we do these headlines. First off, we reported yesterday that Daimler Truck and Toyota are working together now to merge their Japanese brands, Hino and Mitsubishi Fuso into a single unit. The idea being that they will be able to save money on technology by working together. But there's also a couple other things at play there. One is that, Toyota was really embarrassed by an emissions falsification scandal that Hino went through last year, a very expensive scandal, and one that even had the Toyota CEO apologizing, which is kind of custom in Asia. Daimler, which is 89% owner of Fuso, doesn't really like having the Mitsubishi name associated, and therefore they'll come up with a new name for this joint operation, which should take effect sometime next year. We talk so much about Nikola, and it's usually bad news, but, they really are trying to keep moving forward in the decarbonization space. They're working with PGT Trucking, which is a company that has sent a letter of intent for 100 of their trucks, as well as Nucor, a steel maker, to move low-carbon steel from a Nucor plant in Kentucky to a processing center. Just one of those things. I mean, we say so much about Nikola, so much of it not positive, but honestly, this is a positive move. So, good for them, right? Finally, next week, we're going to see what looks like, this is not the one, but you're going to see one looks a lot like this, a charging depot for heavy-duty trucks. This one that you're looking at here is one that Cisco is putting in place in California. Next week, Schneider will be cutting the ribbon on a new facility for its trucks. You can see the orange ones there that they will be using for 50 e-Cascadias from Freightliner. This is a program that California helped pay for. In any case, a big deal out there. You're going to have an awful lot more of these kind of charging depots to keep up with the demand and the purchases, mandated purchases really, by California of heavy-duty electric trucks. So here we go, folks. Got to get started on that. Okay, so headlines out of the way. Let's bring in Ali Javadi. Ali is the CEO and founder of Range Energy. Now, you might not know what Range Energy is simply by its name, but it is, in fact, working in the trailer space for electrification. And Ali has a background that includes time spent at Tesla, where he was the former head of vehicle prototyping, and then also at Zoox, which is Amazon's autonomous vehicle subsidiary. Ali, welcome to Truck Tech.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, good to see you today. Listen, you were a great sport about this when we talked recently, yesterday actually, and I asked you, I said, are you answering a question with electrification of trailers that no one is asking? And you were a really good sport about it, and I appreciated it. But you also said some pretty interesting things. You said, think about your iPhone. Did you know you needed that before you actually had one? And you gave a couple other examples. So maybe you can help us understand a little bit about Range, about what you're doing and the progress that you're making.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, first of all. It's an honor to be here. It is a question that nobody had asked, but the desire for decarbonization is so strong across this industry, and of course from the outside looking into the industry as well, that what we did was we looked at all the different decarbonization solutions that were presented to the industry, and we realized that the trailer is being completely ignored from the innovation space. And I'm not talking about necessarily disrupting the trailer space, but definitely innovating on the trailer is a big deal. And this is something that frankly, I've been thinking about electrified trailers since 2009, 2010, when we were building the first Tesla Roadsters, and and thinking about what happens to electrification once it hits the commercial industry. So yeah, nobody's asked for it yet, but now our customers are asking for it a lot.
You also compared it, as I remember, to trailer skirts. Nobody knew they liked those until they had them either. So
Yeah.
so clearly this is something that it's a acquired taste maybe or something like that. Now you I don't think you came out of stealth necessarily, but you did have your seed round back
Yep.
in December of last year, $8 million. I think you've since gotten a sort of a bridge loan or a safe loan from your founders. How are things progressing in terms of where you were in December and where you are now? I know that you had a presence at the recent Advanced Clean Transportation Expo.
Yeah. So we closed the Series A, or sorry, we closed the seed round in December of 2021, in fact, and we've been going ever since. And recently, we just closed a convertible note. This is not a loan or any kind of a Hail Mary emergency situation, but we closed a convertible note that helps us with the current insider that helps us get through the milestones that we need to be able to raise a convincing A round. And the goal here is to raise that A round over the summer. And so we about a year ago now, we were at 12 people, and that's kind of where we came up with this thesis, and we did some initial testing and stuff like that. And now we're at 27 people. And we are continuing to scale and hire, and we have very high confidence from the investor community that we are going to be able to bring this trailer to market very quickly.
The range solution isn't just about electrification. One of your claims that you have out there is that you get 41% reduction in diesel use without any additional operating costs if a diesel tractor, for example, is pulling an electrified trailer. What kind of commercial arrangements do you have, since it's still pretty early days for you?
Yeah, on the commercial side, we're starting to work with both the upstream and the downstream supply chain. So on the upstream side, it's the e-axle and battery suppliers and things like that, and we have good confidence that we're going to be able to continue our rate of speed through initial deployments. And then on the downstream side, we're working with a couple of the very large trailer OEMs. And the goal here is to work with them to deliver our technology line side and ultimately bring these products to the customer in the same sales channels that they're used to.
Is the trailer attitude one of, wow, why didn't I think of that? I mean, is that what you're hearing from these guys, or is it,
I think
I'm just curious.
it's really, really interesting. The first and kind of the OEM that we have the deepest relationship with and the most progression with our commercialization with, this idea has been around for a while. It's been around in the military. The defense industry has done this. There are a couple of proof points over in Europe for technology like this. And really, these trailer OEMs have been starving for some type of an innovation platform. Folks are talking about adding cameras and powered lift gates and things like that onto these trailers, but the challenge is that they don't have a power platform on which to add these accessories on. And so traditionally what's been done is a bunch of lead acid batteries and a lift gate have been thrown at trailers, or a diesel engine and a refrigeration unit. But what we're looking at doing is bringing this power platform to the trailer, and that really, really helps open up the opportunity for innovation from the trailer OEMs. In general, these trailer OEMs are very comfortable with incorporating new bearing technologies or new brake technologies, new materials for the panels and things like that. But bringing in a new fundamental piece of technology like electrified powertrain and sensing is something that's a little bit out of the wheelhouse of these folks. And so we're a big welcome surprise to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wasn't aware that there were military applications to this, or European applications. So this is not cut out of whole cloth for you, but this idea of getting people used to the idea that the trailer can literally carry its own weight, just like the tractor has to. That's pretty new. I mean, that thinking, and that's going to take some. That's going to take
It,
some adjustment, isn't it?
it is, and it's going to take a lot of transparency and humility from our side to make sure that as we start to generate data, like for example, in the next few weeks, we're sending this exact trailer that you see in this video out to Arizona to get some independent efficiency testing done, so that we can actually broadcast that data out to the public to show that it's not only us that are claiming these numbers. And the initial customer pilots that we have going this summer are further reinforcing that, not only with the customer side, but with the regulatory side. So one of the pilots is being done in conjunction with some of the California regulators, so that in future conversations for things like incentive programs and grants, trailers are part of that conversation going forward.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to if you didn't, and that is this idea that to some extent you're sort of like the kid with his nose pressed against the glass, looking at all this incentive money, but not really qualifying for much of it. And I don't know what you are qualified for. I guess I would ask about, the cooling units, the trues first, and then, whether there is in fact, a way to, kind of tap into some of this. We just wrote this week about, there's like 650 incentive programs across the country, both federal and state. What's out there for you? What can you actually tap into today? Anything?
Uh, because our trailer is this power platform, we can actually tap into some of the TRU incentives because we are eTRU ready. We are fully TRU ready on the trailer. But we are being very proactive. Like I said, some of these pilots are being done in conjunction with the folks like the California Air Resources Board and other folks like that, so that uh, we we do continue to qualify for and are presented with more and more of these incentive programs as they come up. And like I said, a lot of these incentives are focused on the tractor or charging infrastructure. And we believe that that's going to get expanded to trailers, and our customers are going to see some massive benefits here pretty soon.
So even though today you're considered an off-road vehicle, and that's part of the reason that, at least by definition, you don't qualify, you think there is some movement. This reminds me a little bit, Ali, of what Hyliion's gone through. They've got a pretty good solution in terms of either natural gas or RNG and electricity, and they qualify for some of the incentive, but maybe not the whole thing. Do you think that's one of the outcomes that you may see as well?
That may
Sort
be
of a
the
plus.
case. We
Well,
may
I mean,
only
would
qualify.
you expect to get the full thing? Yeah, full amounts.
It, you know, it's such a moving target that it's really hard to say what we would like, what our ideal scenario is. And frankly, it would be foolish for me to bet the farm on these incentives or these programs that are there. And so we're actually building our system fundamentally, on the business case, so that it actually makes sense, and it's on cost parity with the total cost of ownership of today's trailers.
Mhm.
If you take into account the fact that you're going to be replacing over 40% of your diesel spend over the life of that trailer with a little bit of incremental equipment cost and the cost to charge, which is actually migrating kind of down as the cost of electricity is, or sorry, the cost of gasoline is going up. We find that there's a whole bunch of other benefits here that are just beyond this kind of 40% uh, fuel economy increase.
Let's talk for just a minute about sort of the structure, and I don't need to go into the weeds here, but there is there, I should ask, is there a weight penalty with what you're doing? By the time you add, either electrified platform or an e-axle and things like that, are these trade-offs, or is this adding weight to the overall trailer?
So
And
this is going to be a
ultimately,
trade-off.
I'm sorry.
There are trade-offs in a similar fashion that you have let's say a 12,000 pound payload impact from an e-Cascadia or a Tesla semi. You have about a 4,000 pound gross payload impact with our system. But again, we're working with the regulators to bring in at the very least that 2,000 pound allowance for electrification. But we're also working on other incentives or other programs to be able to net out that mass balance. But one
Is
thing I'll
that
say, one thing I'll say is from our research, and understanding that about 70% of the loads are cubed out before they're massed out, we still believe that there's still a huge application for this product. But contrary to what we thought, our first big customer is a beverage distributor and bottler, and so they are massed out on every single load of a 48-foot trailer, but they're still super, super excited about the benefits that we're going to be able to bring to their fleet through this technology, and they're gung ho.
The 2,000 pounds you mentioned, is that the 2,000 that it exists out there right now? That'll go from 80 to 82, and so you would
That's
just
right.
sort of apply that to us, meaning the trailers. Yeah. How about production? When do you see that actually happening? And let's talk a little bit about, you said, line side, I think, at maybe a trailer manufacturer. When do you see that actually happening?
Our goal is to start production at the end of 2024, so it's not that far away, and first customer deliveries are in 2025. We are currently planning on delivering brand new units to those customers. We do have an option, depending on who the customer is and what their current fleet size is, to establish a retrofit program. So our system does retrofit onto existing dry vans and reefers. So we can actually bring our system to your current fleet without you having to buy new trailers. But initially, we're looking to deliver early 2025 brand new units to our customers.
How big a tear up would a retrofit be to do this?
The only kind of so the nice thing is that our suspension slider clips right into the slider rails of every one of those trailers out there. And our battery pack clips into the I-beams that are underneath the floor of the trailer. So those are all relatively bolt-in, and we're actually developing a few hours single person process to be able to retrofit trailers out in a gravel lot if need be. The only kind of deep piece of integration is the kingpin sensor, and depending on how we integrate that kingpin sensor, that kind of depends on the manufacturer of the trailer. They will weld in, or in some cases bolt in, the kingpin in a different way. So we have different scenarios for different trailer manufacturers of how we integrate sensing into the kingpin. But it is a pretty straightforward retrofit.
Yeah. Trailers typically go, I don't know what the exact life is. Let's call it 10 years. Maybe it's higher, maybe it's longer for some.
Yep.
What is the work that you're having done in terms of getting some of your numbers checked independently? Are you also looking at durability at length of life? I mean, how long will this be expected to hold up? When would you have to change batteries and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So one thing that the more that people will learn about range, the more that we'll learn that we're very pragmatic with our applications and our tools. We're not in this to disrupt any industry or to change the way that you're working. And so sorry, I'm blanking out on the specific question as I got into my train of thought.
I was asking about durability and also about battery swap, things like that.
Yeah, so we are focused on and we are matching the existing durability cycles of a trailer. So if we're looking at 10 years, million plus miles, that's what our system should deliver to the customer as they expect a current trailer to work. And then if we do, and our battery charge cycling and the life and degradation of the battery will match that duty cycle. Now, if some reason somebody needs to swap out a battery pack, maybe in the future they want to expand their capacity of that trailer or something like that, it is absolutely a pretty straightforward service operation.
Okay. Everybody on this show, when you're a startup, you get these questions from me, which has to do with finances, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about your raise, about your, the extra money you got to keep going. You mentioned this summer for your A round. This is still a pretty brutal market, Ali, to get money, right? And when you're acquiring trailers, and I'm just using a round number of $30,000 each, because I think that's probably close. Maybe it's higher. I don't know.
Currently, dry van $65,000 for a dry van.
Really? Wow. Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, they passed through a lot of costs, didn't they?
Yeah. The cheapest I've heard. Yeah, the cheapest I've heard at volume was $60,000 for a trailer.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I thought dry vans were less, but I'm missing something. At that price, I mean, you're making my point though. How are you able to sort of manage your cash when you have to go, at least for now anyway, buy trailers? And that sort of thing. You mentioned employment doubling. That's also cost. Runway is always the question here, right? I mean, how situated are you?
We're pretty confident in our runway. So today we have enough runway to continue with our current very, very aggressive and fast plan to go out at least a year. So we're very confident that we're going to get through this funding round with a good outcome, and we also have several investors that have expressed interest in participating and or leading the A round. So we have good signals from the industry or from the investment community that this is something that they would like to see come to market. And as far as things like managing cash burn and things like that, obviously we have to be as scrappy as possible, no matter what the funding environment is. Even if it's super generous, you never know what can change. So scrappiness is just part of the DNA here. I think looking for efficiencies where we can, cost efficiencies, whether if we need to do some isolated test that doesn't need to see a customer, maybe we don't need to buy a brand new trailer to retrofit. And in fact, going forward in the future with some of the commercial relationships we have with the large trailer OEMs, it's unlikely that we'll probably go to a dealership and buy another trailer again for a while. So
Right.
I'm confident on our ability to last through this kind of storm.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the candor because, I have to ask those questions. You just have to when you're
Yeah,
talking to
absolutely. No,
doing,
it's
doing the
it's super
space.
important. Like as an operator, my biggest question would be, how am I going to know you're going to be around in 5 years to
Yeah.
warranty this thing, to take care of it, right? Or to sell me more in
Right.
5 years if it's going well. So those are all super duper important questions.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another one, and yeah, I teed it up with you yesterday, so you know what's coming. And that is, do you see your technology, what you're working on, as something that you used 5 years? Let's go there. In 5 years, will we know what range energy is, or will you have been, if you're successful, will you have been acquired by one of the major trailer makers, or somehow either licensing? How do you see that playing out over time? Assuming you get past these early testing and early evaluations.
I'm very confident that Range's suite of technologies and Range as a brand will be around for a very long time to come. And I'm excited to
Okay.
share all of the other stuff that we have in our back pocket with the rest of the world when the time is right, as far as innovation on the trailer space, all the way from the Class 8, all the way down to a privately owned consumer bicycle trailer, for example. So we're very confident that we have some staying power and we have runway in our technological pipeline to last us many years out. Now, as far as potential acquisitions, there are always, those are all things that are out there and possible. Our ultimate goal is to get these dry vans and these Class 8 trailers into customers' hands as quickly and effectively as possible. And if that is the right way to do it, whether it's some kind of an acquisition or a licensing deal or some other form of partnership, then we'll do it. Nothing is off the table at this time, except for making sure that we continue to be huge added value to our customers.
Yeah, I didn't ask you this when we talked earlier, but what about IP? Is there a stack of patents behind you there, or applied
Yeah,
for? Where?
we have five large tranches of claims that we've begun to go through the filings on, and so we're being very aggressive with the IP filings. Like I said, there is precedence before in the industry or outside of the industry, so we are working through the different claims that have been made in the past. But we're very confident that, especially for things like system safety, reliability, and system efficiency, we have the filings and the patents that we need to be able to operate freely.
Great. Ali, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate having you on the show. Get to learn a little bit more about what you're up to. We're going to be watching to see what's happening in some of the announcements you have coming, okay? Thanks
Excited to
again for
share.
joining. Okay,
Thanks.
great. Take care. All right. So next week, we're going to talk to yet another startup. Although these guys have done pretty well on the raising money side. Outrider, which is automating distribution yards, at this point has just recently raised $70 million in their B round. And, we will have Andrew Smith, the CEO of Outrider, with us next week. Hope you'll join us then. Thanks for watching.